If I really think about it, pretty much all my stresses and worries are just pieces of something that I call time anxiety. Time anxiety is that feeling that you're never going to catch up. You're never going to be able to get done everything you want. You're never going to actually cross that finish line and have the true freedom you're dreaming of. Try this little thought experiment. Think of whatever it is that you are striving for, and for now, promise yourself that you will achieve it in a matter of time, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, but you know for a fact that those dreams will come true. And this is not a manifestation type of thing. This is just to show you that the fear and the stress is really coming from the fact that you think you're not going to have time. And that's a well-founded fear because you might not get there. You might die. We might not have the time. That's a valid fear. So it's no reassurance to think that we will achieve them eventually because we really can never be sure of that. But you can see through imagining this that if you know for a fact that all your dreams have already come true in the future, you've already achieved your goals, then you can see how that anxiety does just fall away. And that's because it's the time anxiety. So how can we make more time for ourselves now? That's what this video is about. That is my goal, at least, because we are all suffering from a lack of time. Whether you have much more time than the people around you or not, we're still at a time scarcity, and that's built into our DNA to be fearful. And I really think it is the root of a lot of anxiety. So in this video, I want to talk about some tips and tricks and some that are quite outside the box, but ways of creating more time for what matters to you. The first piece of this is to shift your mindset about time and become incredibly guarded with your time. So you need to think of it as your absolute most valuable resource and treat it as if somebody is stealing your time, as if it is the deepest insult possible, right? I mean, they are stealing life from you. That's how you have to think about somebody wasting your time, or you wasting your own time, or you wasting somebody else's time. That is far more valuable than money or anything else. So to become the master of your time, to become guarded with your time, you first need to recognize the importance of that time and assign huge value to your time and to time in general, and then let that shape the way you choose to do anything. Whether that's saying no to things that are not worth your time, whether that's saying yes to things that are worth your time. And overall, probably the biggest pitfall is just mindlessly going through your time and not really making either of those decisions and just doing what is in front of you and never zooming out and crafting your time and being guarded with your time and protected with your time and selective with your time. Next up is slow down. So I have personally found this one to be maybe the most transformational in terms of how I manage my time. And it's interesting because this is actually something that I am putting time into, but it seems to give me more time in return than I invest. And I'll get into a few specific things that I do for this, but they all have the common thread of slowing down to zoom out and create the space for what I want to fill it with. What work do I want to get done? What fun do I want to have? But it helps me to create that space by slowing down. And the slower I can make my time go, the more time that I have. The days that are rushed, frantic, hectic, those are the days that just fly by and nothing really seems to have happened. Whereas the days where I feel in control and selective and intentional about where I'm putting my attention, those are the days where I feel are filled. So slowing down as a whole is what helps me with that tremendously. And I can do that through meditation, through journaling, through reading. So all three of those and others, they help me to just be present in that moment. And then you seem to come out of the fog a little bit after these things because you're just a little clearer, a little more slowed down and intentional. And so if you take nothing more from this video, it would be to have some kind of slowdown practice, whether that is even just to read, or even go for a walk and listen to a podcast. There are other forms of this. Maybe when you take a shower, you don't listen to anything or talk to anybody, and that is your time to just think and slow down. There are other ways to do this, but some kind of slowness practice, if you will. Next up is limiting your media consumption, or going on a low information diet, as Tim Ferriss puts it. So this is saying no to just the constant noise of the world, whether it's social media, the news, YouTube, podcasts that you don't need. We have this tendency, and I'm guilty of it too, to learn things that we don't need right now. And I'm a huge proponent of lifelong learning and, all of that. But sometimes it's easy to just do so much of that you end up getting nothing done, or essentially wasting your time on learning things you don't need, rather than choosing what you are to consume when you need it. So the overall practice here would be to put some restrictions on what you are consuming. And a good little tactical way to do this is, say, even on Instagram, unfollow half the people you follow. I'm sure you don't need that flooding your consciousness. It's just, there's no point. And, audit how you're consuming news. Are you reading or watching or listening to a lot of news that is completely irrelevant to you? Cut it out. And take a look at your email inbox, which, first of all, try to batch that and not just let that consume your whole day. But how many of those emails coming in do you need? How many of them, light you up and you're glad that you read them? If not, unsubscribe. Go on a mass unsubscribe frenzy. What I did for a couple of weeks, I kept it in mind, and every new email that came in, which was a lot for a while, every new email I came in, I would make the decision to unsubscribe or not, for mailing lists, not for, random one-off emails. But I suggest do that for a little bit. Keep it in the forefront of your mind every time you go into your inbox, and unsubscribe to anything as it comes in. That way you can catch them and cut them off at the source. Next up is to take breaks. And this absolutely ties back to slowing down and what we talked about there. But I find it's incredibly important to have these micro slowdowns throughout the day, just to kind of reset, especially if I started my morning with the meditation, with journaling, with reading. Then, you get into a frenzy of work or errands or whatever's going on in your life, and it's easy to lose that. But just to step outside for 5 minutes, or even 1 minute, or even just to take a couple of deep breaths, especially if you can do any of these outside, it just seems to amplify it. Go for a walk, get a little bit of sun. There are other sort of health implications there that can definitely contribute to more energy and just overall feeling better. So the more I stack those things and work it into my day, the better I feel. And it's kind of these mini resets throughout the day. And next practice is to get up early. And I was the most guilty of this, not sticking to this for my entire life until honestly this past year or so. And so if you're, the person staying up to 2 a.m. as I was and waking up at 10 or 11 a.m., then I know how you feel. Maybe you weren't as bad as I was, but when I was younger than that, it was even worse too. But I did eventually solve it. And the main core thing here is the only way to do this effectively is to go to sleep earlier. And sleep is probably the most important thing you can do for your health and your life in general. I highly recommend the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, one of the best books that I've read in the past couple of years. Definitely recommend it. And then having a good sleep practice, but doing it early enough that you actually wake up early. That is the way to wake up early well. And the reason you want to wake up early is I just find that makes the day feel so much more full and so much more time. The days where I feel like I have an abundance of time to fill are always the days where I got up early. The later you get up, the more you just feel like the day is already ending before it even starts. But I do want to give that caveat again, which is you can't just do this by just getting up earlier. You have to go to sleep earlier. And that's another example of sort of trading time for a 2x time in return. It just seems like a worthy trade-off. It feels like it. And before you go to bed, or as you wrap up your work day, plan tomorrow today. I don't remember who exactly used that phrase first. I'm guessing it's probably been around for decades, but I find that is a good practice to set up your next day on the right foot, and then you feel more planned and intentional with that time because you already just set a little bit of a plan the night before. That one definitely helps my days feel more structured, and in general, having a little bit more structure does help seem to make me feel like I have more time. And I come from being an entrepreneur who wanted all the unstructured time in the world. But the more I sort of think about filling certain gaps and setting off time to do things, the more I feel like I actually have more time. And then this is a big one, literally do less. I think most people, and I've been horrendously guilty of this and I'm still guilty now, but this is where I'm now pointing towards, is we do too much. We have so many things going on, and what is the rush really? It's much better to be focused in and doing good work on the things that we feel are the best uses than to just do too many things. And even me right now, I'm starting new businesses. I have all these different projects going on, but I kind of see myself shifting towards a simpler workflow eventually. I hope I get there someday, but maybe in 5-10 years, I'm just doing 1 or 2 projects at a time, or even just one. And that would be the level of focus and freedom and openness of my time. I can only imagine how that will feel. And lastly, this is definitely a bit of a curveball, but this is something that's incredibly interesting to me and opens up an entire other field for thinking about. And this is to actually try to live longer. And by trying to live longer, by trying to be healthier and doing things that map to longer, healthier lives, or longer health span, meaning the part of your life where you're actually healthy and able, meaning rather than maybe being sick by 70 and dead by 90, maybe you're healthy until 80 or 90, meaning more good time. And there are definitely proven things that lead to that outcome. And for me personally, this is just a huge area of personal fascination and obsession, which is my current health and longevity. And I highly recommend a book on this subject. It recently came out and was the best science book I've read in a long time, actually since Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. This is Lifespan by David Sinclair. I'll link both in the description, but both these books are fantastic. But Lifespan will absolutely open your eyes to the possibility, the impending outcome of living longer, healthier lives. So for me, this looks like all kinds of crazy, wacky habits, from sleeping early, for example, and getting 9 hours or so per night, to diet restrictions and being fanatical about exposures to chemicals and making sure I'm using clean products and just generally living a healthy as possible lifestyle. I am doing that so I have the most energy and make the best use of my time now, and hopefully create more time for myself. So hopefully these tips can literally create more time in your lives, because that is the most valuable thing. And if this video was a valuable use of your time, which that is always my goal, is to not waste people's time, because I am so fanatical about this subject, then please do hit the like button on this video and subscribe, leave a comment. Those things all really help with the YouTube algorithm, and hopefully to show this video out to new people, to bring them in, which would really mean a lot to me. So if you can do those things, it is much appreciated, and hope you enjoyed, and see you next video.